Is Chris Roberts worried about Starfield? Question mark, release Squadron 42. Well, if he's not worried, he definitely should be. Folks, welcome to the channel. As always, if you haven't subscribed already, consider doing so. The channel is slowly but steadily growing, which is great. I have other channels. This is by far the smallest channel I have, but I enjoy doing this. If you enjoy watching it, a subscription is definitely appreciated, and it encourages me to do more content, and, well, you know how the rest goes. But I saw Salty Mike reacting to this from the Noobifier. By the way, huge respect for both guys. Anyone that shows their face on YouTube, I have an amount of respect on just that alone. And Noobifier seems to be a very decent guy based on what he has uploaded and so on, even though I may not agree with some of the things he says. But let's go and do this. Is Chris Roberts worried?
So I thought long and hard about what to call this video, and I think that this title is perfect. I don't think it's baity at all. You let me know.
No.
Hello YouTubers, this is Noobifier. As a fan and follower of the continuing drama, which is the pre-alpha development of Star Citizen, I do like to play other games. I know that there are some purists out there who only play Star Citizen. That's fine for you, but that's not me. I find it great to take a break and dump into another title because there are too many people making too many other great games for me just to focus on one incomplete title. I do like sim and shooters, but I do like me a good first-person RPG like Fallout, Cyberpunk, or Borderlands. The gameplay may be fun, but what really gets me invested is those world-building, lore, character, and story. I back Star Citizen for the PU, and yes, of course
I mean, absolutely, couldn't agree with him more. I would enjoy a lot more a complete full game, especially when there's content, when there's a story, where there's progression, where you develop a character and you have your home base and your homesteads and bases and whatnot. All of that sounds incredible, and the idea of not having everything wiped every couple months, that sounds just fantastic. And besides, a story, an actual game, which is what you don't have in Star Citizen. And he does mention this about several games you can play. Yeah, I completely agree. Now, the caveat here is you can only play one game at a time, okay? And for us grown-ass adult men, we don't have all that much free time. We have families, we have kids, we have jobs, we have things to do, and the amount of time that you have is limited. So you can only play one game at a time, and you're limited in how much time you have, right? I often buy games that I don't even install. In my Xbox, I bought the one from Harry Potter. I actually played that one a little bit, but, you know, my kids played with it a little bit more and so on. But you just don't have time to play everything. So you can own several and it's fine, but you usually play one at a time. So if it's the case that Starfield, it is a lot more entertaining, it's a lot more better, a lot more fun, and you feel that you can progress on that enjoyment, well, it's naturally that, I mean, who's even playing Star Citizen right now? Let me know there in the comments. I'd love to know who's playing Star Citizen right now, for real, how sales happened in that last one they had, for real. I would be surprised if they're any good, because why? I mean, you have a game that's about to release now. Anything you do in Star Citizen, kind of.
I'm going to play Squadron 42 whenever it releases. On today's topic, is Chris worried about Starfield? We should compare CIG against...
When Squadron 42 releases, dude, people are so naive at times. Last time someone got drunk in one of these bar citizens, they said it was at least 5 years away. That means they have nothing at all on Squadron 42. You've already seen everything they have on Squadron 42. This is, I mean, just common sense. This is the same company that does entire YouTube clips on concepts of sounds for Pyro. A company that does an entire show on the concept of a sound of something they're supposed to be releasing would have shown you already everything they have. And that's exactly what they've done. You've already seen everything there is on Squadron 42. That means there's nothing on Squadron 42, and the money is just being spent elsewhere, I guess.
A more conventional game studio. By doing so, we will come to the conclusion that they are not the same, that they do not operate the same, and they do not have the same requirements. So we'll say that Bethesda Studio and CIG began working on their games at the same time. We will say that both companies estimated that it would take $300 million and 10 years to make the game. That $300 million may not happen all at once because of staffing and offices, but that will come from somewhere. Bethesda either allocates its own money to the project, or they take out a loan, or they get backing from another corporate entity. The pressure is on from day one to deliver, not only to the fans, but the ticking clock that is money. The investment and promises have legal contracts, and missing these, regardless of the reason, will have a cost. CIG's crowdfunding model means that they do not have to invest their own money, they do not need to take out a loan, and they're under no pressure from any other corporate entity, except for that South African dude. Due to the transparency, there's perhaps more pressure to deliver from the fans, but there's no ticking clock from money, just a ticking clock from any deadlines that were promised.
That is actually, and Nubifier is like implying that this is positive. It actually is the complete opposite, and it's not me saying it. It's the developer of Doom, McCormack is it? Anyway, the guy that developed Doom and several other legendary games, he actually makes an excellent point about if you don't have a deadline, you never release a game. And I completely understand that. It is extremely difficult to self-motivate if there's no pressure. If you have all the money you need, if you have all the time you need, you just don't give a fuck. That's simply a way human nature works. That's simply a way companies work as well. You have deadlines. For all of the greatest video games out there, they have worked with deadlines. Again, look up, there's a very good interview from the developer of Doom. I cannot recall his name right now, but he makes a case about it is crucial to have a deadline. Because they don't have a deadline, that's why you're likely to never see Star Citizen or Squadron 42 ever released. So it's not something good, it's actually something quite bad.
CIG really has no personal investment because of the funding model, and they're not legally liable for missing deadlines, even if doing so will result in a wave of frustration and drama. And we've seen no matter what happens, the funding keeps going up. So to answer the question, is Chris worried about Starfield?
Again, one mistake I think Nubifier makes, the funding. There's no funding here. This is a company that's about making money, like all companies are, and the big difference is that Bethesda develops a game, sells a game, makes money. CIG is a company that works in a very different way, which is we just sell ships, we make money. Sell ships, make money, hype, promote, advertise, sell ships, make money, sell ships. So they're already in their business. They're not waiting for the bread to be delivered. They're not waiting for a time in which they sell a few million games or whatever it is. No, that's not their motivation. They don't have that deadline. They don't have that financial motivation. Their motivation is just to develop a new ship to sell, and that's what they've been doing all along. That's why you're unlikely to see not only any game ever released, you're unlikely to see, and this is the thing that personally pisses me the most, you're unlikely to see any additional new content, significant new content ever released year by year. There's no financial incentive for any of that.
From a corporate perspective, no, I don't think so. Starfield might actually create more love for space sim RPG in general, and basically that would be buttering up gamers and making them more interested in trying Squadron when it releases. No.
Squadron will never release. You can bet your house on that. And just because you have a great game doesn't mean that's going to be making shittier or non-existent games better. I mean, why on earth would you go play Star Citizen when you have Starfield? Again, keep in mind, 95% of the people playing Star Citizen play because of the ships, not because of the multiplayer. Honestly, most people don't want to even come across anyone. They want to do the cargo, they want to do the drug runs, they want to make money, progress, do the things that Starfield will actually offer that we just wish we had in Star Citizen, and we don't. But it's not going to be that, oh, Starfield doing great, we'll just send people to Star Citizen. That's not how any of this works, man.
A blip on the radar compared to a AAA game made from a AAA company. I'm not saying that there are not millions of people watching and waiting, but I will make my point this way. The most viewed video on the subject of Star Citizen is the Imagine trailer, which is a fan-made Star Citizen inspired video. It was published on the 19th of December 2014 and in total has 2.3 million views.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing.
For comparison, the Starfield original trailer from 2 years ago has over 17 million views, the one from last year has over 5 million views, and the one from 10 days ago has 2.5 million views. Bethesda needs a clean launch, and they...
Okay, yeah. I have a video that has over 4 million views. So what? does it mean exactly what? Nothing. Someone just clicked on it. It really means nothing if you have a video with millions of views. It just means that you just got it right with either the thumbnail, the algorithm, the content, whatever it is. Yeah, it's nice, but it's not significant in terms of, oh, we're doing things right here or there.
You need to hit their release date or it hurts their company. CIG also needs a clean launch, but they actually don't need to hit any release date because aside from the work and time invested by its staff and perhaps the one or two people who bought a stake into the game, they won't be hurt. This funding model removes the ticking clock, and the past deadlines backfired badly, so it makes sense that they...
Again, it's not a funding model, it's a business model. They're not really getting funded to actually deliver anything. They may say that, of course they do, but they have obviously no intention of ever releasing anything. The proof is just there in front of your eyes with so many years. And what, 5% of the game done? Less?
Don't and shouldn't release any more deadlines. There's no reason to. People are still paying. Single-player games come and go regardless of how good they launch and regardless of how big they are. Off the top of your head, you can go down a list of games that came out in the last 5 years. You've watched all of the big streamers hype, play through, and then they die off. The hype is sustained...
Oh, he is so damn wrong with this one. It's Grand Theft Auto. You think that game that's a single player game. Grand Theft Auto 5 launched as a single player game. Still this day, people are going nuts over it. Sure, you have the multiplayer elements. Skyrim with the new mods. My kids are still playing Skyrim. They will buy. I could never even get any of my kids hooked on Star Citizen. They actually think I'm kind of an idiot for even playing it myself. But single player games, it's not always that they just have a start and finish and they just die off. It depends on the game. Something like Skyrim goes on for decades, still going strong. And of course there's going to be a multiplayer eventually for Starfield as well. When that's out, you can forget about people playing Star Citizen. That's probably why they should be very worried.
Longer for other game types which can generate a larger fan base, but the reality is you can watch Captain Richard or TV Liquid play through any game, but you wouldn't tune in if they only played Borderlands 2 or if they only played Diablo or the Old Republic. The same will happen with Squadron 42. 1 or 2 playthroughs at maximum, or perhaps every other Friday, you'll have a stream devoted just to Squadron 42. Repetition will eventually take over as people have seen it over and over or have played it over and over themselves.
Not if there's
It'll release and it'll disappear with a huge bubble, which is fantastic awareness and would be a gigantic chunk of vindication for this project. There will always be those haters who call it a scam. But if Squadron 42 launches clean and delivers what was promised, you could easily always counter by just saying, yeah.
It's not haters, man. It is people that actually see that there's a very thin line between being scammed and not, especially with something like this. Is it actually a scam? Well, it depends on how you view it. Legally speaking, yeah, we can go that no, because there's actually some little progress in theory being made. They make sure of that. It is so close to being a scam that they make sure that they put it out there that they're actually doing stuff and developing, because if not, it would definitely be a scam. Now, I argue the point that it is so little progress being made that it is pretty much, in all practical ways, pretty scammy. Especially the way in which they let you think that you're financing something that you're likely never going to see. That is quite clear. And you know what's even more scammy than that? You're financing something that you won't even actually get. You're thinking that you're funding a game and you'll get that game when it's actually released. No, that's not the case. You're buying hundreds of dollars worth of chips, and when the actual Squadron 42 game releases, the game that you're funding with your money, when that releases, you will have to buy the game because the money you were giving them, that's just for, I don't know. That is very thin ice, man. That is, legally speaking, how shady that is. I would argue that, man, if I've been funding the developing of the game, why is it that I don't get the game? I gave you $500, $1,000 to make this game, and I actually don't get the game because what you were making with my money was something else? That is as scammy as it gets. And if you don't see it the same way, I don't know what to say.
It was late, but it wasn't and isn't a scam. I have some interesting things for you to consider. The more time we
not
spend
late. It
perfecting
hasn't
the
been
game,
released.
the better, and that's obvious. But what if the motivation isn't to finish the game fast, but to pause for the correct time? Releasing Squadron and Starfield at the same time is dumb. CIG might actually be aware that no matter how good Squadron is, Starfield still has a larger following. It's too late to launch it before, but I actually think that Chris has been moving the release date waiting for something else. It's a bit of a joke at this point how every single free fly coincides with a horrible time to play Star Citizen PU. Many will say that the low performance is due to the free fly, but I can also see this as the desire to wow and impress with new features. New features at the release of a new patch in CIG's desire to hype things is for them to show what's been done, and that is exactly the right time for a free fly in their minds. Now we should escalate this 10 magnitudes and evaluate what would happen when Squadron releases. People's minds are blown by the story, game, and cinematics. Millions of people see and play, and then when all of that is done, they'll go play the PU. So let's say we have invisible enemy clipping through the floor, an MMO that has a player cap of 100, NPCs that T-pose on tables, missions that cannot be completed because they're broken, 150 non-flyable ships, and 1 out of 100 planned star systems released. So Chris will see Squadron not only as a game, but a massive advertising campaign for the PU. Squadron will sell. CIG will make a ton of money, and that'll be great for the company.
Really? Will it
Because
sell?
unlike Starfield,
Will it
all
ever
of this money
release?
is pure profit.
Based on
because
what?
CIG didn't need to front their own capital, they didn't need to take out a loan, and they really have nobody to pay except for that one South African investor that we heard about 5 years ago. If you think CIG has missed deadlines due to mismanagement, I would say no, that's not possible. And I believe after thinking about all of this and how it would unfold, it now makes perfect sense. Chris is not worried about Starfield, but eventually Squadron 42 will seem more like a last gen instead of a next gen game. It has to come out soon, but despite everyone thinking Squadron is holding back...
Wait, what? It has to come out soon? I mean, I don't know where's the line between being naive, between wishful thinking and delusional. You really think Squadron 42 will come out soon? Are you fucking insane, man? I mean that with all due respect. You are not even seeing Pyro, which is something that they've been promising. They've sold ships based on that. They've sold people the Banu Merchantman, and then they said, oh, it's just too big. Well, yeah, you just sold it. You told us we would see Road to Pyro this year, the next one. We don't see anything. There's nothing. Nothing they've ever said was actually ever delivered. What makes you think they will ever release something called Squadron 42?
The PU, it's actually the other way around. The PU needs to be better, more polished, more fleshed out, with pyro,
it's always getting
functional
worse.
meshed servers, persistence, missions, medical, law, bounty, and systems to explore.
Years
These all need
with
to
nothing.
be ready for the millions of new players. If you thought the little uptick during a free fly was funny, wait and see the joke when the servers get blasted with a tsunami of interest. I should end there, but I want to talk about transparency, missing deadlines, and the
No
release
transparency
schedule.
whatsoever.
Answer the Call
Lies.
was 2016, and that was already 2 years later than the original proposed release date. We all know that scope and scale grew, and this accounts for the missed deadlines, and this is why the funding continues to grow with no known plan aside from the Gantt chart and the bi-weekly updates from Jake. We know Chris loves a good show, but I also know that the last thing CIG needs to do right now is to hype a deadline and then miss it again.
Oh no! Oh, again, he just doesn't understand. He doesn't understand, and it is this benevolent thinking, this not seeing how people can be greedy, not seeing how people can and do lie all the time. People in business and companies, especially in stuff like this, they lie. I mean, the line between hyping and lying, it's rather thin. With CIG, they have no shame at this point. They will lie to your face time and again, year after year. But there's people that are just too good, too nice, too naive. I mean, Numifier here, he just surprised because he does seem like a smart guy, but he's so damn naive. You honestly think this is all just an accident, missed deadlines? Dude, they just do it on purpose. That's the way in which they hype, they promote. Someone will get fed up and say, enough of this bullshit. I know you're as scammy as hell. And there's going to be 10 more guys saying, oh, that's cool. We're actually getting Pyro next year. Oh, no, wait. Road to Pyro. So it's the end of this year. Could be next one. No, it's not the end of this year. It's not next one. And you know what? It's not going to be next year either. And it goes on. And eventually when 5 or 10 years later, you see Pyro, it's going to be what you only saw already. It's going to be that and extremely nothing. It's going to be underwhelming everyone because it's going to be copy-pasting the old thing they do all along. You've already seen all of Pyro. That is what you'll get.
So I ask you a question, and this is where you can get involved. Let's say at CitizenCon, Chris announces that Squadron will release on whatever day. That could be Christmas, in the spring, next summer, whenever, and it doesn't actually matter. The media might go crazy.
Dude, it kind of does matter because if they say that's going to be releasing in Christmas or in 2025, well, it should release. But you know what? They've done this so many times already, we just don't believe them. And we would be stupid to believe them because they don't fulfill any of their promises ever. They have not released anything they promised to release. It's just the only thing that is constant is they never deliver on any of their promises. Nothing they ever promise, even in patches, even in deadlines for patches, they screw you over and lie, knowingly so. What makes you believe anything they say matters?
And run a story. The media will also focus on the negatives with questions like, can Chris finally deliver? Will it miss another deadline? Positives and negatives both hype. And then CIG would pay money to run commercials and they make the game available again in the store perhaps for $80. The release comes and goes. As planned, it's a perfect launch. And here's another way of doing that. Let's skip the announcement.
That is where he's delusional. With all due respect to Newbie again, he seems like a great guy. You're delusional, bro. You really think that it will just release perfectly fine? There's nothing here. You know what shows you, for example, something that will be releasing? Starfield. The one thing that, yes, most definitely Chris Roberts should be worried as fuck about. Starfield will release. It will release in about a month or so, and you will have it, and you will play it, and it will be awesome. It will be all of those things that Chris Roberts has always been talking about and never actually delivering because he likes money more. That's the only truth to all of this. He just loves money more, and I get it. I probably would do the same thing. If I have a business model that has been proven to be as successful as his, I would be milking that sucker until the end. And when the end does eventually arrive, which always does, the only thing I can bet is that you're far more likely to see CIG, change hands, get sold, get broke, go out of business, whatever you want to call it. If Starfield puts a few nails in that coffin and this just is not monetizable anymore, it's just not financially viable anymore, or just, we got all the money we could and now it's not working anymore and people are moving to something else. You now have Starfield, you now have everything that Chris Roberts promised and never delivered. We have that in a single player, and the next year when they're still fucking around with Pyro or not, you then have multiplayer Starfield, and you have multiplayer Starfield with mods, with 1,000 planets to add cities on. Why the hell would you even bother with not playing Squadron 42, which you will not see, but why would you bother with Star Citizen, with the PU, the empty, messy, buggy, broken PU with no story, no content, and constant wipes? Why would you, when you eventually have a multiplayer fantastic game that does everything you thought Star Citizen would one day deliver, when in reality, business model, completely different?
Let's have no dates, no announcement, nothing. You log in one day and the launcher is there after it's patched itself.
You're tripping.
There's a new tab that says Install Squadron 42. Again, no info up until this point. Let's say this happens to Captain Richard. They tweet about it, they install it live, and people rush to their systems to play and experience.
You know what? I finally understand Nubifier. He's an idealist. That's what he would do. He would actually take that money. Nubifier, by giving what I understand about him based on what he's saying and some of it, Nubifier would have worked very hard, actually do and develop a game, and he would actually one day go, boom, there you go. You now have Squadron 42. That is what Nubifier would have done himself. He's not understanding what Chris Roberts and his family and the business he's running is all about. It is not about delivering any of this. It's about making a lot of money, which is perfectly fine, running a business that is about selling ships and hyping the idea of what one day could be. The only thing that is changing now is that, going back to the title of the video, should be worried. Well, worried is maybe a little bit of an extreme word. Let's call it that he's finally smelling the roses of now there's something for people to play. There's gonna be a open world space game with RPG elements, with the cool ships, with customizable ships that people will not have to pay for each one, and actually persisting, the true persistence, the one that matters, the only persistence that matters in a video game, which is I keep the stuff I do, I keep my achievements, my time spent in this world, in this fantasy world matters. Within this world, a year could go by and I still keep the crap that I got. My achievements make sense here, and not this swiping constantly just for more ship sales and lack of actual progress, right? And when that happens, the business model will take a huge dump.
Squadron 42 for themselves. The media runs the story and the buzz is even larger than if the date was announced. We don't have any negative stories because there it is, it's launched. New citizens arrive to play based on the hype, and yeah, I think this would be how I would like to have Squadron 42 launch. No announcement, it just shows up.
Yeah.
So now it's up to you. You have a very big job. Comment in the comments with your comments about the following. 1. Do you think that Starfield has Chris worried? 2. Do you think...
Of course, it has Chris worried, because Chris knows that once this launches, all of this stuff that you see, you can pretty much do all of that in a real game, with real content, with a real story, with real progression that matters, not PES filling everything with crap that no one even cares about, and actually losing every couple months the stuff that you do want to persist. That's a real persistence. That's the only persistence that matters in any video game, right? All of this bullshit ends when Starfield finally launches and we have that alternative.
That CIG is planning to announce the release of Squadron at CitizenCon this year. And 3, how do you feel about my proposal of a stealth launch?
You know what? It probably will say something. They may be hypocrite enough to actually say, yeah, Squadron 42 in 2026. Or Squadron 42 in 2027, 28. Doesn't matter. They will not deliver anything that they say. And only the most naive, maybe some of the new players, some of the more innocent, or maybe some of the more idealist people that would not work that way themselves, like Noobifier, maybe those guys will go, well, maybe he will deliver upon that. But if there's anything you can learn from these people in CIG is that they lie through their teeth all day long. That's the only thing you can count on them doing, right? That's pretty much it.
For Squadron. Remember that all of the scenarios that I propose are under the assumption that there will be a clean launch, and after 10 years...
And this thing of yours that, just launching one day, forget about it. Dude, I mean, I'm surprised because, if you're a smart person, you can see what they do. You see what they do all the time. They're hyping, constant hyping of the nothing that they do. How much hype have they done with the settlements, the relics, the library of content? They do hours and hours of content to hype their PU and their ship sales with nothing. If they had any of this, you think they would just keep that to themselves? Years of real developing of a game and not exploit that for ship sales? Dude, no. Anyway, guys, all the respect in the world, but man, yeah, very different opinions here, and I have no doubt whatsoever how this will turn out. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, subscribe. See you next time. Take care.